you've got to have an emotional connectivity to the music, to the parts, not just the music in general, to the part. And that's kind of the way that I approached, especially the first two albums. That's the way I approached all of my drum parts. For me, it was almost like if I played the parts by themselves, in my mind, they're all voices. I'm not hitting anything. I'm there. My parts are all singing. And they're all singing. So a cymbal has to resonate for a period of time. Drums have to resonate for a period of time. I've got to hit the membrane at a particular level so that it doesn't overtake anything else, or else we're going to have to start using gates. And I didn't want to use gates. I'm not interested in using gates. We're losing all kind of like dynamic, all warmth from the instruments that you're playing when you start gating everything. Gates fine for live, I'm guessing, especially big live. But when you're recording, you want to feel the warmth. Maybe sometimes you actually want to feel the bleed from one instrument to another. You want to feel the bleed from an E string into an A string, because that's kind of like that's where you are emotionally at that particular point in time. That's you playing it.
Yeah.
That's you playing it. That's not an engineer messing with it. That's you playing it.
Right, awesome. So, listen, thanks for joining us and chatting to us.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invite.
Pleasure. Now, a lot of people will know you, obviously, through Libertines, Dirty Pretty Things, but there's a lot more going on, right? So we've got, and we'll talk about all of these things, the awesome Chaz and Dave.
Yeah.
Eddie Grant.
Yeah.
The Specials.
Yeah.
New York motherfucking Dolls. I mean, come on, that's just cool forever. But also,
that is just, I know.
That's right, but also DJ, record label as well. But what I really would like to talk about first is the Unity Rocks project.
Cool.
Yeah. So could you just explain to the people watching what is it?
Well, Unity Rocks. It pretty much. I started Unity Rocks back in the winter of our discontent. Post the announcement of Brexit. The weirdest thing was, I mean, it kind of goes full circle. I was DJing at that point in time. I think I just DJ'd in the weekend. I DJ'd in Milan, and then from Milan I came home, and then I was home for a day. Then I went to Belgium to DJ, and then I came home, and I came home the night of the night of the vote. Came home, and we'd all voted. I got, it was a long journey back. But I got back from DJing the day just before, the day before the announcement. I woke up absolutely shattered from just the constant traveling. I think I was on tour with the Libertines previously before then. So I'd literally done, that's right. I was in the Ardèche Valley, came home from the Ardèche Valley, went to Milan, came back from Milan, went to Belgium, came back from Belgium, got up the following day, and my missus looked at me and just said, "We're out of Europe." And it literally felt like I'd done my last hurrah, the last tour of Europe quite easily before the vote was announced in the favor of those who believe in rural Britannia, and that Britain did everything by itself and the empire still stands and we can live on our own 2 feet. Those people. Those people. And then we started seeing in the news, I mean, automatically the first thing that I saw, which was, I think this was literally within a day or two post-Brexit, on Channel 4 News, there was a man being interviewed because he was vocally attacked by a couple of young kids in Manchester, who obviously from their parents received all of this information regarding the vote, and their parents had obviously voted Brexit. And these kids were just swearing their head off, just completely just effing and blinding about foreigners coming into the country. But it was about 3:00 in the afternoon, so the bus was full of school kids and mothers and a few dads, and everybody was just kind of looking at these kids like, "Oh my God, listen to you." And this one guy just stood up and said, "Look, do you mind just kind of like just not swearing so much?" And the kids looked at him and went, "Go back to your own fucking country. The fuck are you? Get the fuck out of here. Can't stand the likes of you." And this man was being interviewed on Channel 4 News. post the event.
Yeah.
Where was this man from? Was he from Jamaica? No. Was he from Pakistan or India? Was he Bulgarian? Was he Romanian? Was he even European? No. He was on vacation from San Diego.
Wow.
This was, and I saw this, and then obviously post that again.
Yeah.
Even more reports of attacks on people who were of Jewish descent. There was, especially in London, there was lots of racially motivated crimes against Jewish people. Pakistanis, shop owners, blah blah blah. Cemeteries being desecrated and so forth. And it was literally on the basis of a few people who decided, for whatever reason, that England would be better as an economic powerhouse by itself.
Yeah.
That was supposedly what the vote was about. But then all of a sudden it got turned into this vote about the relevance of immigrants coming into the country and the immigrant status of people, and the fact that there were way too many immigrants coming into the country. And all of a sudden the media, they started reporting on the immigrant crisis that was happening within the country. All of a sudden we started seeing more and more immigrants coming across the channel and sneaking in via lorries, trying to sneak in via the channel. And it was, and all of which was, these things were definitely hapning, but to the degree that the general public thought was happening, no. And there was also a report in Boston and Lincolnshire, which I just found just absolutely hilarious. People in Boston and Lincolnshire who voted Brexit, they voted Brexit on the basis of the fact there was way too much immigration coming in. But then there was one pivotal question that was asked: how much immigration happens in your town? And they said, well, none, but we've seen it happening in the news.
Oh, come on.
Seen it happening. So these people had no problem with it. None whatsoever. But they saw it happening. And because of that, there was, it just increased the statistical number of intolerant crimes that was happening throughout the country. And I just saw this, and I was talking to my missus, and she just said, man, this is nonsense. Somebody should do something about it. And I thought, instead of just talking about it, why don't we? So within a day, I'd kind of written my own little kind of mission statement manifesto. I'd contacted my management company and I said, this is what I want to do. And they were totally behind me 100%. And the proceedings just went off quite quickly. I think I managed to get this show at Brixton Academy up and running with sponsorship, with PR. I think I managed to get it up and running in just under 2 months.
Wow, that is quick.
It was a really, really fast turnover. And initially the plan was to be, it was going to be a hell of a lot more grandiose. It was going to be much bigger. It was going to be over 2 to 3 days with different acts from different genres of music. But we couldn't pin down the artists. We just couldn't pin down the artists. It was just too short a notice. So we pinned our hopes on one day. I managed to locate contact the charity Hope Not Hate. We had a very quick meeting with those guys, one meeting with them. And then from that one meeting, we just kind of like hashed out a plan of attack, how we were going to do this, how it was going to be very educationally motivated, so we could actually get all of the education, all the educational material out to the relevant people, and that they would actually be able to, we'd raise money for them so that they could actually then go into schools and actually talk about the relevance of integration within the UK, blah, 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 all of the rest of that stuff. And that was amazing. Post that, I then went, I was then very active with the Libertines again. Then last year, I started looking at doing it again. I was working with a guy called Mark Dunn, where I contacted the charity Stop Hate UK. And I thought, right, and I need to do this again, but we need a slightly different approach. I wanted it to be less arts and creative motivated, but more of a combination, more of a culmination of workshops, of creative people working with people within the idiom of intolerance. People like Stop Hate UK. So they'd have a workshop and there'd be conversations and so forth. And then I also wanted to have ambassadors around the country. So because one of the major problems that I found was the fact that everything in this country is centrally motivated.
Yeah.
If London was to be hit by an atomic bomb, it's almost like the rest of the country would come to a halt, which is absolute nonsense.
Bullshit.
The rest of the country is not going to come to a halt,
No.
but that's the impression that is given off by everybody. That the whole of the United Kingdom is very much dependent on London running as smoothly as it possibly can do. Even now with COVID-19, all of the reports are pretty much on the basis of what happens in London. We very rarely do we get to see statistical data as to what is happening with reference to the coronavirus, as to how it's really affecting small enclaves of the country.
Yeah.
We never hear about that.
Yeah.
We hear about massive spikes in big cities, specifically London, how it's really affecting London, but anywhere else, it's kind of, it has an effect, but it doesn't seem to be as pivotal. Yeah. And remember, we're talking about people's lives. So where it hits, it's extremely important. If you live in Nuneaton and it's happened there, we need to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should be hearing about it. We shouldn't just be hearing about the centralization of a coronavirus or anything of that nature. Yeah. And that seems to be what's happening. So I wanted to create an environment where there were ambassadors. So I got Dave Rowntree, who I helped with the Star Boots sale, raising money for awareness and so forth. He was on board. I contacted Dynamo, contacted a few people. And they were all kind of like really, really interested at hosting events and being a part of something that would be educational for everybody involved, including themselves, including myself. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that I would be an ambassador for intolerance crimes and hate crimes in Sheffield. Yeah. I don't know nothing about Sheffield. Yeah. Why would I? Yeah. Why not get somebody from Sheffield? Yeah. So we got John McClure from Reverend and the Makers, and he was one of the first people I contacted, and he was just like you had me at hello. I'm all over this. Yeah. But due to illness on my part, that kind of fell to the side. And then once I kind of recovered, got better from my woes, started touring again, started working on my own stuff, trying to get myself back into shape, to get back into the real world. And I've started Unity Rocks again recently. So I'm just kind of like greasing over the old. Actually, that just sounds completely wrong. I'm just sorting it all out again. And recontacted Stop Hate UK. We're having a Zoom chat on Friday regarding how we move forward, and we're just going to take it from there, basically. But I think I'm just going to maybe simplify it again. Last week, I was in conversation. I participated in a discussion with Rebecca Shaw about the film White Riot. Right. The documentary about White Riot, which was, not about White Riot, the documentary White Riot, which was about the 1978 gig at Victoria Park in London, and the march that preceded it from Trafalgar Square to Victoria Park, which is a pivotal part of British history. Absolutely. And it just, again, it's another aspect of British history that's actually being forgotten. We are only taught about specific things with relevance to those people who deem those things to be relevant to everybody else. It's not the history that we should all learn.
No, absolutely.
So that was great. Daniel Rachel was involved as well, another Midlander, so that was cool. He was hosting, and Bengi and Sal, she's the co-curator and the music director of the South Bank, and she's the co-creator of Meltdown. Right. So it was really, really good to get a cross section of people within the creative industry who have extensive knowledge of what happened at that particular point in time. Yeah. But also have an interesting look, an interesting outtake on the way society works today.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. That's amazing. And it's funny you should say, it's like, decolonizing the way that history is taught and the way the media is controlled. Oh, it's happening in London. Even if we go back to coronavirus, just down the road from me in Gwent, that's where the worst per capita or per head infection rate is. But you never hear about it. You don't hear about it. Because it's not London, it's some bumfuck part of Wales that no one cares about, apart from the people who are dying there. Yeah. And the whole Brexit narrative of if we all leave the EU, there'll be all this money for the National Health Service, plastered on buses going around the major cities. It's like, it's a lie.
Yeah.
It's just a fucking lie.
Yeah. The narrative that was drawn up is very much akin to the narrative that's drawn up in America as well. It's everybody knows that we live in a very polarized society right now. The world is much smaller than we think it is. But unfortunately, I think the major problem isn't the narrative. I think it's the fact that people are way too willing to stick to their guns. They know. I mean, even now, people know that the Tory government, well, not specifically the Tory government, but the Brexiteers lied about the bus.
Yeah.
And everybody knows about that, but they're still willing to stick along with it.
Yeah.
And that is the worrying faction of all of this, because no one seems to be asking the question, what is so important about sticking with this narrative when you know that you are being lied to?
Yeah.
If it's not the narrative that's important, what is it that is drawing you to this particular voice? Mm-hmm. And I think it's more to do with the voice than it is the narrative. So you can say whatever you want, and it's been proven in America. I mean, for one thing, I have no understanding how Trump was allowed to hold his Tulsa rally this weekend, not only on Juneteenth, but in what was historically called Black Wall Street.
Yeah.
In the 1920s, Tulsa, Oklahoma was Black Wall Street. That's where all the blacks, they lived there post-slavery, and they started to build communities for themselves, and they started to raise money. And it was a little financial capital within the whole of the country for black people. And then over 300 people over the course of 2 days were massacred there. And he was still allowed to hold a Trump rally at the site of this blight, not on just an American history, on human history.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And I akin it to if the Mujahideen, or ISIS now, were going to hold a prayer meeting rally, 9/11, at the site of the Twin Towers. Would that be allowed?
Yeah.
Of course it wouldn't.
No.
Of course it wouldn't. And we are in actuality talking about two major terrorist atrocities that happened under the guise of Homeland Security.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason that these things are being allowed is because of the voice. I don't think it's specifically just the narrative. I think it's the voice. And I think that's what needs to be questioned. Why are you so willing to follow like sheep when you know that you are being lied to? What is it that you are actually running away from? What is it that you are actually scared of listening to? What is it that you don't want to become part of your lexicon? What's going on?
Yeah. And I think it's all exacerbated by social media as well, isn't it? Because people are allowed to jump in, throw their arguments, even though they know the basis to them is bullshit.
Yeah.
But it's almost the power of the rant. You know, and they get attention back for ranting.
I've had to slowly distance myself away from social media, albeit as of recently, I've enjoyed looking at the narrative with reference to the Black Lives Matter promotion of Black Lives Matter, and everyone else actually joining in with it. I think that's actually really refreshing. I just hope that it's something that it may not continue within the guise of social media, but I just hope that the feeling actually is something that is ascertained by everybody, and everybody can actually have a conversation about it. Everybody's comfortable. Everybody's actually comfortable saying black and white. There's a black man there. This isn't about hiding from people's color. This is about respecting people's color, respecting people's individuality within what is the ensemble that is the United Kingdom. That's what we want. We don't want people. I don't like the whole ideology of I don't see color. If you don't see color, then you don't see me, and you see me as being the same as you, and I'm not the same as you. I am different, but it is a difference that actually fits within the confines of the society that we live in. You know,
100%.
I'm not totally different, but there are things about me that are different. I have had a slightly different upbringing. Sometimes I eat different foods, but these are the things that actually bring us together. These are the things that, you know, that help create the melting pot of the society that we live in today.
Absolutely.
It's not really that different, but it is different.
Yeah, yeah.
Accept it.
Absolutely.
And I think we need a heck of a lot more of that with reference to how we move forward as a society, the overall acceptance, the overall education of everybody involved, the whole going back to Brexit again, the whole ideology of in the Second World War, Britain won the Second World War. Britain didn't win the Second World War. Britain won the Second World War with the Allies, with the assistance of the Polish, with the assistance of the Indians, with the assistance of eventually the Italians once they make their mind up, with the assistance of the Czechoslovakians. You know, the Battle of Britain was not just British pilots flying.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
No,
it was Polish. It was Indian. It was West Indian.
Exactly.
It was a march patch of all of the Allies that assisted in protecting the shores of the United Kingdom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But British history says it was Britain.
Yeah, it was
alone.
It was 10 white guys in Spitfires.
Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah, and it wasn't even the Spitfire. The Spitfire wasn't the main plane there. It wasn't. It was, what was it called again? It wasn't the Spitfire.
Was it a Hurricane? The Hurricane.
The Hurricane. Yeah. It was a Hurricane.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a Hurricane. That was the main fighter plane for the Battle of Britain, not the Spitfire. But people decide they want to. They've redesigned British history to suit the narrative of the few.
Oh, absolutely.
So that they can then voice their opinion about the direction that the country should be going in.
Yeah.
And that's really dangerous.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of shit is widespread everywhere. It's like you've been to Russia. You go around Moscow, there are no statues of Trotsky.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
There's statues everywhere of Lenin and it used to be Stalin, because the narrative of the victor. Yeah. Erases the people that actually helped that fucking path in the first instance. But you don't fit the story now, so let's just edge you out, you know, or smash it down and deny it. Anyway, right, music.
Sorry, yes.
No, this is all awesome. Now, a little bird, or rather John Dawkins, who I was speaking to this morning. In fact, I've just signed to VAM this morning.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, so we're kind of roster mates.
Yes.
But he said, so you're working on your first solo record?
Yes, I am, yeah.
That does have a comic book attached to it.
It does. It has a graphic novel attached to it.
Yeah, you call it a comic book.
And hopefully soon to be included a film as well. After Christmas this year, I went to Tokyo with manager Dave Bianchi and Carl in the band as well. And Carl was performing there. I got roped into performing, but I was initially supposed to be going just to have a meeting with a character there about the possibility of having the whole project turn into a film as well.
Wicked.
I've been working with a script writer called Jim Martin out in the Valley in LA, and I was out there last September. We were working together for just over a week, kind of like putting together the first two movements of the graphic novel, and it's going to be over 4 movements, and it's basically has a footstep in the truth, so you can actually read it. And the plots and the storyline will actually be factual, but it's also sci-fi. Okay. So you have to take the truth and spin it on a dime, and then figure out how that truth fits into the universe that we've actually created for this. Wow. So because the musicality as well, the musical aspect of things, I'm guessing from a melodic and a dynamic standpoint, it could be deemed as being somewhat Libertine-esque. But generally speaking, from a musical standpoint, it's completely different. Yeah, it is. Wow. It is completely different. It's definitely more than a stone's throw away from what we would do. But because that is my heritage, everything that we do, everything that I've done regarding this has been approached from an emotional dynamic standpoint, you know. So the lyrics have have kind of like a place that is somewhat poetic, and the music kind of fits along. It has its own kind of emotional dynamic, so you can actually grasp hold of an aspect of the song and actually feel where it goes because of the emotional dynamic that's been created by the vocal that coincides with it.
Yeah.
So it's been really, really interesting, and that's what I've been working on today, actually, before you call. Minus all of the damn feedback that's been driving me up the freaking wall.
That's technology, isn't it? It's like
that is technology.
When it's all smooth, beautiful, and then when something's happening, like I don't know where it is.
Yeah, exactly. Don't know where it is.
I've taken all my plugins out. I've done everything. It's still happening. What's going on? But Gary, that sounds fascinating, because a lot of people, I've kind of been in the same position, and I know you definitely have as well, and a lot of people do. It's like, if when you're in a band, but you're not one of the front people, they just go, oh, that's what you do.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact as well that your role in the Libertines is not, oh, he's just the drummer. I know you had a lot more steering input, because everyone thinks the Libertines, they just go, okay, it's those two. You know, it's the two fuck-ups who love and hate each other, and they write all the songs, and who else is in the band? Unless you're a Libertines fan, then they know. But I know for a fact you had a lot more steering and input into all the records and the whole process, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing that kind of makes the way you've kind of put it. I know you don't mean to do, but in my mind, it kind of sounds a little bit kind of fascio di combattimento. I wasn't particularly a fascist with reference to my work with the guys, but when I joined the band, it was literally just a three-piece. It was me, Pete, and Carl. John had already left because they'd been working together for a period of time, and the band didn't seem to, in his mind, I think the band didn't seem to be going anywhere, which is fair enough. I mean, he's still the youngest in the band, and at the point in time, I think when he left, he was still kind of like in his very early 20s,
right? And
he'd given up everything to join the band, and I think he decided he was going to go back to school, do his A-levels, and kind of take it from there. Pete and Carl was still relatively young as well, but they had a vision as to what they wanted to do. And I met them at a pub that we all used to go to, Filthy McNasty's, in London, Amwell Street, not far from the Pentonville prison, which became kind of prevalent as well, unfortunately for us. And we started hanging out for a while, and then we went to the studio, and they brought me some stuff, and they just kind of allowed me to kind of like revisit their initial ideas as to what the music should sound like, and kind of transform it slightly into something else. Not just from a drumming standpoint, but just from an overall dynamic as to what the music should be, how it should be represented, and blah, blah, all of the rest of it. And then they just let me work the hell out of it. And those the initial first few months was literally all about do as Gary says, basically. Right. And I would get pissed if I turned up to rehearsal and they'd make a mistake. And then, I literally would just lose it, because I had a crappy little job at that point in time. Yeah. I was helping pay for studio time. I didn't have time to leave my job, come straight to the studio, sit down behind a little crappy kit, and then play with those guys while they were fucking up their own music. Yeah. I didn't have time for that. Yeah. There was no time for that type of bullshit. So I just kind of used to lose it. But what it actually did, other than it being a draconian environment, but what it actually did was instill in those guys this mentality of the better it is the better it is. Yeah. So henceforth, when we were ready to go, we were ready to go. And no matter how shambolic people actually thought we were, it was kind of part and parcel of a plan. Yeah. It was be as rough and as ready as we possibly can be, but definitely within a framework. Yeah. That framework was rock solid. Yeah, yeah. And we couldn't move away from that framework. Yeah. I mean, I remember like the first 2 years we won Best Live Band at the NME Awards. I think first or second year, I remember sitting across the table he was on an opposite table, Tom York from Radiohead, and it was us, Muse, Radiohead. I mean, these guys are powerhouses and have been for a long time. I remember not being in bands and seeing Radiohead and Muse and thinking, oh my God, you guys are amazing. And then I'm sat across from them, and then they announced that we had won. And I looked over, and Tom York looked at me, and I looked at him, and I just kind of shrugged my shoulders like, who would have knew? Well, guess what? I would have knew. Yeah, you knew. Yeah. I knew. Yeah. And unfortunately, over time, for one reason or another, we've kind of like we have lost that drive, that attack, that passion. But I think life has kind of gotten in the way
Yeah.
of everything that is what we wanted to be and who we are right now.
Yeah.
But, that's what happens with everybody, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's natural with any group of people doing anything, But particularly in the whole sort of band thing, people often say to me, "Why did you leave Ocean Colour Scene?" It's like spending 15 years, every single day of your life, 15 years with the same 3 other people. I said, imagine if you worked in a factory with 3 people. When the bell rang to go home, they came home with you.
Yeah.
It's like after a while, you're like, eh.
Yeah.
But I love what you say, because I know a lot of people go, oh yeah, the Libertines, they're just a shambles. Okay, well, listen to the Stooges. They're a fucking mess, but it's part of the template and the dynamic and the drive. And it's the same thing, isn't it? Husker Du. It's a mess, but it's not.
Yeah,
it's that drive.
It's especially when you talk about the Stooges. I mean, the Stooges. They were part of that whole kind of Detroit scene, which was amazing for that point in time. Especially when we talk about, if we move forward about 20 years, and you have Rock Against Racism.
Yeah.
Prior to that, you had the Stooges, and who were the Stooges hanging out with at that point in time? Parliament.
Yeah.
Garage rock kind of came out of a hodgepodge of like them hanging out together. Parliament got their guitar groove from possibly hanging out with the Stooges.
Yeah.
And the Stooges got their garage, dirty, rocky, funky sound from hanging out with Parliament.
Yeah.
It was definitely, it was definitely a cross of genres that happened at that particular point in time. And without the Stooges, you would not have a massive garage rock movement. You definitely would not have the indie rock movement that happened in the early noughties.
Totally.
Definitely pivotal towards that.
Yeah, totally. So there was 2 producers on the Libertines, wasn't there? It was like there was Bernard and
Bernard
Mick.
Butler. Yeah, he did the first few singles. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did What a Waster. He worked on Don't Look Back into the Sun. But the album, well, I'm sure both albums were done by Mick Jones.
Mm-hmm. So, obviously, as you're saying, you were working really hard, getting the sound together, and then obviously you go in, I think with Bernard, then Mick, for the first record. Was that weird to then bring in other ears and eyes on the sound that you've been working on? Like, this is really important because, you're not wasting your time. I don't want to sit behind this crappy drum kit. We've got our shit together, and then we bring someone else in who's then putting their opinion, or were they a lot more sort of just get on with it sort of thing? Because a lot of people don't understand how producers work with bands. It's actually interesting to put it out there for people.
The funny thing is, when especially when I think back to that point in time, because prior to that, we'd been in demo studios beforehand, and we demoed stuff, and literally we just went in there, and because we're just working with an engineer, we just, as I'm sure you know as well, you set up your kit, you play, you record, and then that's it.
That's it, yeah.
And there's no umming and ahhing. I'm not too sure whether that chorus was actually needed. Do we need to lengthen this? What about the sound of the guitars? We literally just go in there and we record.
Yeah.
And then we come out of there.
Yeah.
And that's that. Then we started working with Bernard, and Bernard actually starts going into the minutiae as to what we're actually trying to achieve. Mm-hmm. And we're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that at all. But unfortunately, there was a breakdown in the relationship, which kind of really didn't help. It didn't help moving forward. Mm-hmm. And Bernard's approach was definitely one of somebody who, like many producers, he would have heard the material beforehand and said, right, I've got a definitive idea as to how this is going to be. This is how we're going to approach it, and this is how it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And then came in and said, that guitar part isn't working. Mm-hmm. That guitar part's gone. We're going to simplify it. We're going to do something else with it. The drum part there, don't like it. That's gone. Mm-hmm. Put something else in there. Which was fine, because it was a learning curve for us. Mm-hmm. We were just like, yeah, that's amazing. Then we listened back to the stuff and we're like, wow, didn't expect it to sound like that. Mm-hmm. Didn't expect it to sound like that. And to be honest and fair with Bernard, he didn't particularly do that much. There's only a few things that he kind of did. But he definitely instilled in us the role of what a producer actually is. And then obviously, as I mentioned, the breakdown of communication with us, and we started working with Mick Jones. Mick Jones then, he kind of went 2 steps forward and 1 step back. He took us back to a place where our input, our emotional connection was really, really important to him. And I think that's what made the clash be who they were. I remember the first day that we met him, he kind of got lost on the way down to the studio, and it was raining, and he had a little plastic bag with his notebook inside, and he went, "Oh, I've been in the studio before, but I got completely lost on the bus." And it was just like, it was so refreshing to have a bloke just turn up. And then we started hanging out and playing, and then we went around the corner to a pub off the Brewery Road called the Albion, which is just kind of everything Libertine has got something to do with the Albion.
Even
Carl now lives on the Albion Road. You know, it's all the Albion. And the hotel in Margate, there's the Albion not too far from there as well. Everything is Albion orientated with us. And we started talking about like his time within the Clash, and the one thing that he said that he regretted the most of all was when the band split up, not kind of mending any fences with reference to relationships between people. You know, he said, because the journey was so long, and this is something that you mentioned beforehand. You know, you've been in the band 15 years, you're spending all of your time with them. I think that was definitely the same for the Clash. They were spending all of the time in West London together, and it just got a little bit too much. And then obviously, with Infamy came having to tolerate the person that you're stood next to all of the time, and not actually being given that minute to actually sit back and reflect on what you've done and how you are going to move forward. Yeah. They never had that. And Mick said to us, if there's one thing I if I could turn the hands of time back, I would repair all of my relationships with the guys in the band, at the least, regardless of us actually moving forward. I would repair that. So I would have at the least a clean conscience and a fond memory as to everything that we did.
Yeah.
As to everything that we did. And we kind of held on to that for a very, very short period of time. But then obviously the wheels did start to fall off a little bit. But Mick Jones, he took us into the studio and he just said, instead of saying, "I don't like that," his approach was, "Do it again." And do it again.
Yeah.
And then he danced in front of us, and then he said, "Do it again." And we became so au fait with him being there and performing in front of him that everything that we played just kind of stepped up a notch. And it's the part that, some people just think it's just playing a part. But the approach that you have to playing a part has a big say in how the actual sound is. Yeah. And you could have a laissez-faire approach to a guitar part and it sound all right, or then you could be really kind of staccato and really dynamic with it and really kind of like put peaks and troughs in there, exactly the same guitar part, but then it fits into the music. It creates a life of its own, and it creates a dynamic that is really, really important and pivotal to that piece of music.
Absolutely.
But that is then only by design of the person behind it. So you actually then become integral to everything that goes on. It's not just, everybody says it's about the music, but it ends up being about the emotional connection that you actually have with the music. Yeah. And the delivery of that is absolutely 100% pivotal. It's 100% pivotal. And Mick totally instilled that in us. Yeah. So all of a sudden we had this sound that just kind of came from nowhere. And all it was Mick Jones just kind of, and Bill, I can't remember what his surname was, which is a damn shame, the engineer. We worked with the Beatles and absolutely everybody. Right. Just kind of like really kind of like honing down our approach to playing the music. And then Bill working with Mick, kind of like really going over all of the finite details as to how everything actually fitted in together to create the sound that was kind of our own at that particular point in time. Yeah. It was totally niche and our own at that point in time. I wouldn't say it wasn't a new sound, not by any stretch of the imagination. There's nowhere on this planet that the Libertines in the early noughties recreated the wheel. We didn't do that. But we did create a new dynamic that perked up everybody's ears. And then they all went, "Oh, that's kind of, what the heck is this?" Yeah. We wasn't expecting that. We wasn't expecting the music to be played at that tempo, but that's the tempo that we were happy playing at. So Mick was like, if you're happy playing at it, then you better be able to deliver it in a style that is kind of befitting the music. Wicked. I want to be able to hear the lyrics, but I also want to be able to really understand the articulation of the musicality that's behind it as well. All of that's got to be defined. All of it has. And then I'm just going to deliver it in a way that kind of makes it sound as if it's you. It's not. We don't want it to sound like a refined record. We want it to sound like a rough cut diamond, because that's what you guys were. At that point in time, we were just rough cut. We had no idea. We had no idea what we were doing, and it was fantastic. Yeah. So the whole difference basically was we were kind of like let off the leash a little bit, but kind of like dragged back into a pen of Mick Jones's design.
The way you describe that. It rings so true to everything I've done and the way I feel about it as well. And people are going to love to hear that because it's what you said. It's your attitude and emotional connection to the parts that are yours and they all interlink with each other and the personalities of the people who are playing them. It's not the series of notes and how fast or slow and this and then getting this tone on your guitar and all that. It's the way you deliver it.
Yeah.
It's that attitude. Yeah. You know, it's like people go, oh, blah, 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 Sly and the Family Stone. You listen to Larry Graham, Sly and the Family Stone, his bass lines, okay? And they're amazing and they're so simple. But you know why they're so funky? Because he means it.
Exactly.
The articulation, the delivery.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the most important thing in the world to me right now and always will be.
Yeah.
You know.
You've got to have an emotional connectivity to the music, to the part, not just the music in general, to the part.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way that I approach, especially the first two albums. That's the way I approached all of my drum parts. For me, it was almost like if I played the parts by themselves, in my mind, they're all voices. I'm not hitting anything. I'm there. My parts are all singing. And they're all singing. So a cymbal has to resonate for a period of time. Drums have to resonate for a period of time. I've got to hit the membrane at a particular level so that it doesn't overtake anything else, or else we're going to have to start using gates. And I didn't want to use gates. I'm not interested in using gates. We're losing all kind of like dynamic, all warmth from the instruments that you're playing when you start gating everything. Yeah. Gates fine for live, I'm guessing, especially big live. But when you're recording, you want to feel the warmth. Maybe sometimes you actually want to feel the bleed from one instrument to another. You want to feel the bleed from an E string into an A string, because that's kind of like that's where you are emotionally at that particular point in time. That's you playing it.
Yeah.
That's you playing it. That's not an engineer messing with it. That's you playing it.
Yeah. And it's not like someone who's learnt the part on YouTube and they're showing someone else how to play it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you're missing the point.
You're totally missing the point.
It's the personality, isn't it?
Yeah, surely. Yeah, I'm sure you can play the part, but can you feel the part? Do you feel it? No. And you can tell they don't feel it because they just sit there and they play it. Yeah. For the majority, they just play it. If they don't kind of like, their eyes are perked at a particular part. If they don't grimace when they get to another part of the music, because I know they have to really kind of push through a little bit more. They don't do any of that. They play the part because they've learnt the part by rote from someone else's emotional viewpoints without actually adding their own emotional viewpoint to it. Yeah. Which is, it's almost sacrosanct as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I've got to ask you, 25-hour convenience store. Is that a bad subject? We can take it out.
No, it's totally fine. Actually, I love the label. I love the label. And that came out of, this was kind of like just, I think, post Dirty Pretty Things. And it was mainly a really good friend of mine who I'm still really good friends with now. I think he started off as being like a temporary tour manager with us. This guy got the best name in the entire world, Max Mystery.
Wow.
In fact, two of my best friends is an engineer at Sensible Studios, and he is the best name ever, John Moon. John Moon and Max Mystery. In the past few years, because we've all been so busy, apart from last year because I was ill, but prior to that, all of the new Star Wars films, when the films come out, that's the only time that we've actually had a chance to hang out. Right. And it was just always great to go see a stupid film and then just go have a drink and catch up. And it was just, still love hanging out with those guys. On the odd occasion, we'll have a little bit of a Zoom, and I've placed them. They're all over the graphic novel as well, because they are the keepers of what is the Menin Gate. But I'll explain about that some other time. They're the keepers of the Menin Gate, and because they're amazing engineers, but just generally awesome people to hang out with. And there's not enough of that. People that you just feel really, really comfortable with and hang out with all of the time. And I never see these guys, and I don't need to see them, because I know they're awesome. Yeah. And when we do get together, it feels like yesterday.
Wicked.
And I don't know where I was going with that, but I love Max Mystery and John Moon. They're my boys. Where was I going with that? Anyway, where was I?
The record label.
The damn record label was Max's fault, the idiot. It was his idea. And the reason that I decided I wanted to do a record label was because at that particular point in time, for me, the industry was being pointed in too many directions that were not artist kind of like orientated. The artist had no control. It was after the indie movement. I mean, there were so many indie bands at that point in time as well, and everybody. I mean, I remember Bianchi, Dave Bianchi, Various Artists Management. He signed a deal for Boy Kill Boy. They became the first £1 million record deal signing indie band. Whether they were good enough to sign a £1 million deal, I've got no idea. That's not for me to say.
Yeah.
For me personally, at that point in time, I don't think any indie band was worth £1 million. It just they just weren't.
Yeah.
And that £1 million was more about the deal that was placed in and what the industry and the advertisers, what they could all do, as opposed to the worth of the band.
Yeah.
This was about, oh my God, we're going to get them playing here, and then we're going to get money from these people to do that, and then we're going to offset that money and do that with this money, blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
That is absolute nonsense, because if you don't know, that £1 million it's got to be paid back somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
you may think you got a £1 million deal, but what you've actually got is a £1 million debt.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they want that money back.
Yeah.
They want that money back.
Yeah.
They want it back. So it's just like, I was just kind of like really kind of annoyed with the direction of the industry, because there were so many great bands out there, and I was going to a lot more gigs at that point in time. I was always out gigging. I was single. I was always out gigging, seeing bands, and I was just like, how come no one's paying any attention to these guys? Nobody's paying any attention to these guys. And the reason why was because the industry had moved on. The industry decided, at that point in time, it was girl bands. It was LaRue. It was Adele. It was artists of that nature. That's the way that they were going. That's the way they were pinpointing the audience's attention at that point in time, which was absolute nonsense as far as I was concerned. It's like, if a band is good, then a band is good.
Yeah.
Then the band gets A&R'd to bring out the best in that band, bring out the best dynamic in that band, and then you have the best PR people out there who work on the basis of the fact that they feel what this band is trying to say. They say, we're with you. And it ends up being a massive team effort to get this record out there. And if it doesn't work the first time, you sit down and you go back to the drawing board and you say, look, this didn't work, but we still believe in you. And we want to work with you to make this right. So what are we going to do? And then this round robin conversation happens, and you go at it again. It's like going to war, but you go to war with the people that you really want to go to war with. That's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. What's happening now is what I akin it to is, say you're 16 years old, and you've joined a band, and you're playing at school, and you're playing in the garage. It's awesome. And you're having fun. Your dad picks you up, you're 17, you start going to pubs. After you play, you go to a pub, you hang out with your friends, girlfriends, everybody's hanging out. You play a few shows, all of your friends turn up, and you're having a great guy. Then a dickhead like me from a record company comes up, and I go, oh, I like you. You guys are good. I want to offer you a deal. All of a sudden, that fun creativity that you had with your friends, making music, still changing people's lives, because it's very, very important, what music actually does to the general public and people's perceptions and personas. It's really, really important. But all of a sudden, that becomes a business.
Yeah, of course.
And that changes the overall dynamic of your relationship with the people around you. And then, say for instance, I've just signed you. You're in my band, and you're the lead singer of my band. And then I get a lawyer in, and the lawyer says, "Hey, you know what? We've got the deal that we're going to offer you. We're going to give you the lion's share of all of the money, but don't worry, we'll take care of everybody else."
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, you get a lot of money. You live in a 2-bedroom house that you bought. The rest of you guys in your band, they may be living somewhere nice, but they're still renting. You got a nice car. They ain't got no car.
Yeah.
They ain't got nothing. All of a sudden, the press is all about you.
Yeah.
When initially, this was all about how you would work together. You all had the same dream.
Yeah.
But that dynamic has been completely contorted and completely changed by the industry. And the industry did that. And then, say, for instance, you sign a 2-year deal and you tour the world and the record doesn't do well. Come the end of that 1 year, you get dropped.
Yeah.
So over a period of time of maybe 2 years, your band is dropped, you're out of a job, and you will owe your record label and everyone else a bunch of money from the advance. You are effectively redundant from your chosen occupation.
Yeah.
by the time you're 18 years old. What the fuck is that about?
Yeah.
Seriously? Is that how the industry is treating its creative youth?
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Now, admittedly, there's been a lot more development that's happened over the past few years. I think Universal now has a development department. Warner's has as well, but they're all under one big umbrella anyway. So they are concentrating on development. But I think the one thing that really needs to be overhauled is the A&R approach to an artist. You can't just go find an artist and say, oh my God, I think you're amazing. Because what happens now is all these A&R artists, all they're doing is going on the YouTube and seeing a band, and they're watching a band, and then they're looking at the ticket and saying, oh my God, there's 25,000 people. They like this, and there's a whole bunch of people at the show. They must be good. I'm going to sign that band. They're not going to it. They're not going to a gig where there's 5 people that have ticked it. And there's 10 people at the gig, and then looking at it and going, oh my God, that music is amazing. We can really do something with this, and working it. Nobody's doing that.
No, because
nobody's doing that.
It's so lazy now, as you said. Just someone will say, oh, you should watch this on YouTube, and they go, oh, look, they've had, if they haven't had 100,000 likes, they won't even listen to it.
Yeah.
And then if it's got like 200,000, and they don't even listen to the music, as you said, it's like, oh, well, this has got a future. Let's get them in now. Let's make sure they've already recorded most of the albums so we can give them a really shit advance. Sign away most of their points to us.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. Oh, and we'll look after your publishing as well.
Yeah, exactly. 360 deal. No, I used to go to label meetings in the early days of the record label when we were about to release something, and we'd have different kind of like people from like your Seven Digital, Amazon's, not so much Spotify then, iTunes, and then we'd all be sitting around the table and we'd be talking about the PR campaign for a release. That we'd play the song and they'd sit down and they'd pop their heads and go, I like that. It's really, really, really good. They're not really listening. And then they'd look at the screen and go, oh, 15,000 people. That's not much, is it? We need to really work on that. I.e., all they're looking at are the statistics. That's all they really care about.
Yeah.
And if they want to improve the statistics, they're in the position to actually be able to do that. Exactly. They can do that.
That's the point of them.
Yeah, that's the point of them. It's a little bit like, putting on a show now.
Yeah.
If you put on a show, you're expected. I mean, I'm guessing there's always been a degree of this anyway, but even more so now, you're expected to bring your own crowd. You go to the venue, but you bring your own crowd. If you bring a crowd of people in, we'll give you some money.
Yeah.
So you're not actually doing any PR. All you're doing is opening the door. You've got the keys. Open the door. And that's your job. No, your job is to do PR. Your job is to sell the venue and sell the band that's coming in, because you have decided that this band is good enough to perform in that venue and you are doing the PR. Do your job.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
There aren't many that do it. Sorry, I do go on a little bit.
No, that's awesome. I tell you what I have had, and you can agree to answer which of these you like or ignore them all. So if I put a thing on Facebook and I said, like, the first 4 people to send a question in for you, I'll ask him. It's up to you whether you want to answer it. So I'll go backwards. This is from Tom Chapman. Hi, Tom.
Tom.
Yeah. Does Gary, or did he before the pandemic, spend much time at the Albion Rooms in Margate?
I didn't, but that was due to illness. I couldn't.
Okay.
I was there a little bit. I kind of like assisted in kind of like the fitting out of the studio. That was my thing. Mm-hmm. And then when we were there for like a week, and we did some demos. I was just kind of like running from the drum booth into the main control room and just pressing record and working the track. That was my thing. But post that, I've only been there. I've only been there a few times. To be honest, I've been kind of like really refitting my own studio, so I can work on my own stuff.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay. This one is from Adam Isaacs. Okay. Adam says, ask Gary what his favourite Chas and Dave song is.
My favourite Chas and Dave song? Oh, God. It's kind of easy. Snooker Loopy.
Snooker Loopy, okay.
Snooker Loopy. Snooker Loopy, because he was on TV all the time. It's Snooker Loopy. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. This is one someone called David Coker, who's clearly suffering from sunstroke. Said, ask Gary if he had to wear high heels when he drummed for the New York Dolls.
No, but the funny thing is, at the time, I mean, it was Russell Warby, who was kind of like the head of A&R at William Morris Agency.
Oh yeah.
And he was not the head of A&R. It was a booking agent for the William Morris Agency, and because he was our booking agent at that particular point in time, and just a general nice guy. I mean, I bumped into him just before lockdown in Brighton. He lives down in Brighton now, and it's always a pleasure to see him. He's just a great guy. Just love hanging out. I used to love hanging out with Russell, and Russell called me up whilst we were in the studio for doing the second album, and he called us up and he just said, "There's been an offer for you. Do you want to play with the New York Dolls?" So cool. And I just heard New York Dolls, and I thought, oh, I didn't even think anything. I thought, I get to play some music. I'm like, yeah. I didn't think about the gravity of the task that was ahead of me. All I heard was a gig. He could have just said, "Do you want a gig?" And I would have just said, "Yeah, all right, fine." I wouldn't even ask who it was, and that's all. And I remember getting into a car and going home was just like, "Oh, awesome! In a few months' time, I got a gig. Cool. I got something else to do." And it was only a little bit afterwards, because I am a little bit thick. It was only a little bit afterwards that I went, "Whoa, wait a minute!" So Russell said it was the New York Dolls.
Yeah.
And that resonated with me because we used to, when I lived in Angel in London, sometimes the boys, Pete, Carl, and John, they'd come back to our house and we used to watch the Old Grey Whistle Test, and we see loads of different things. And we used to watch the Dolls performing Jet Boy.
Yeah.
On the Old Grey Whistle Test, and we kind of like knew it off by heart. And then we were touring in our little splitter van, and we played the Dolls in the splitter van as well. And it was just like, yeah, it was cool. It became kind of like part and parcel of who we were.
Yeah.
The fact, and then screaming like the Wolfman and all that type of stuff. That was us.
Yeah.
And then I was like, whoa, hold on a second. I'm playing with the New York Dolls.
Amazing.
And they gave me 1 day's rehearsal.
Oh wow!
For which they arrived late.
Of course they would.
For which they arrived late, but I didn't. I managed to get through it, and it was a lot of fun as well. And I've made a long-lasting relationship, a great relationship with Sylvain, who I toured with after. A couple of years after that, he did a UK tour and a an Irish tour, Republic of Ireland tour, and it was just us guys in a little split van, just kind of touring around, and it was one of my most fun and one of my most cherished memories.
Wicked.
He was just such a great guy. In fact, my youngest son, part of his middle name is Sylvain because of the time I spent with Sylvain. So, but moving forward, I do talk a lot, don't I? Jesus Christ.
This is good.
So anyway, we're in Metropolis Studios, with the Black Eyed Peas are recording in there as well, but that's another story. And Don Letts is in the studio as well. And after I kind of figured out what I was doing, I told Don that I was going to be performing with the Dolls, and he just kind of like
lost it. Yeah,
he tripped the light fandango, man. He was like, "What are you seriously?" And then literally the day before the show, I saw him. He just said, "You've got to stay here because you know what I've got for you, a tutu." Yeah, he said, "You've got to go on stage in the tutu. You've got to go on stage in the tutu." And luckily, he forgot to bring it.
Thank God for that.
Because it was Don as well. And at that point in time, well, with us guys, Don, whatever Don said, we kind of did. We had no choice in the matter.
Yeah. He's a cool guy, Don.
Don's awesome.
Yeah,
he's an awesome guy. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah. Right, 2 last questions then. Joe Fiasco, which is a great name. Joe Fiasco, definitely made up.
You can hang out with John Moon and Max Mystery. Whoa, exactly. Wouldn't that be awesome? Joe Fiasco, John Moon, Max Mystery.
Have their own TV show. Ask Gary what his best specials moment, I presume he meant best specials moment, was.
Best specials moment. My best specials moment, I'm guessing, would be one is performing, one isn't performing.
Right.
The first one would be the very first day I went in the studio. I'd already met Terry Hall because Terry lives in Angel, so I'd bumped into him every now and again. And when in the early days of the Libs, we used to hang out at this pub called the Duke of Clarence, which was on the Essex Road in Angel. He'd come down with his son sometimes. And as per usual for me, with not much to do during the day other than get drunk, I used to see him in there and try and hold it together whilst talking to him and his son. And so I knew him for a while. But then post the death of Brad, I remember going to the wake prior to actually going into the studio. We'd had a few meetings, Terry Hall, and his manager at that point in time, who is still his manager. And they invited me to fill in for Brad, and I went down to the studios. What was the studio called again? I can't remember. Doesn't matter. Down by King's Cross in London, and I walked in there and saw Horace. And I saw Horace, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" And for me, it's another one of those moments again. It's like because I've got the words I'm playing with the specials in my head, but because there's like a disconnect between my brain and reality, it doesn't actually mean anything until I actually see anybody. Like when with Dirty Pretty Things, we got asked to play Wembley, and I think we were like one of the third bands to perform at the new Wembley. And when I was told we're playing Wembley, I was just like, "Yeah, cool, all right, cool." No big deal. Until I got to Wembley, and then I was like, "Oh my God, Jesus Christ!" And it was the same thing when I saw Brad, and then so when I saw Horace, and then Linval walked in as well, and then we started talking, and then Linval started dropping some old school ska, and I was just playing, and I was just like, "What in the name of God is going on? This is amazing!" And then Terry arrived, and it was literally just the four of us. It was just Terry, Horace, Linval, and myself, and the drum tech, and the guitar tech, and we're just in the studio, and Terry just said, "Let's play Ghost Town." Exactly. I went, "Oh my goodness, are you kidding me?" And it was awesome. It was so much fun because the one thing that I had playing with them, which again, I'm guessing it might be generational. They just gave me freedom to play. I didn't feel locked down to perform in a particular style. Later on, it kind of became with other members. It kind of became, this is how we want you to approach it. This way. It became very authoritarian. And initially, it was, we don't want the authoritarian approach. What we want is a new kind of dynamic to be brought to it, because no one can replace Brad. Nobody can. And we don't want anybody to attempt to replace Brad. What we want is you. We want you to play it how you want to play it. And I was just like, that's fantastic. I love it. They made it so easy for me to perform with them. So every show basically with those guys was just, it was a blessing. But and post, and the other one that wasn't a gig was we played a show in Minneapolis, of all places, which is totally in the news at the moment. And post the show in Minneapolis, I was given the opportunity to ride the Amtrak train with Terry and with his manager Steve, and then who else? And Horace as well, all the way to Seattle. And it was a 3-day journey on a train that took you all the way through the heartland of America, across the Rocky Mountains. It was absolutely beautiful. And to think I was doing it in their company as well. That for me was that was amazing.
Wicked.
That was so amazing. Cool. So that, if anything, they are the two memories. I mean, the gigs were fun as well. But as I think I was trying to pertain with reference to the Libertines as well, it's not just about the performance of music. It's not. The performance of music for me actually kind of comes secondary, because if you don't have that emotional connection with the people that you're performing with, if you don't have that dynamic prior to playing music, then the music will always kind of pale in comparison. It just won't. It will never work. And we've all been there where we've played in bands where, we haven't got on as well as we would have liked to with the other people in the band, with the other auxiliaries. It's just kind of like, you're playing music, but you're not feeding off each other. There's no real kind of like emotional dynamic between you and the bass player, or you and the guitarist, you and the lead singer, which I definitely feel I still have with the Libertines. I mean, every time I play with the Libertines, I'm watching those guys perform, because I know they're performing from a place that is very individual to them, but placing it all within the amphitheater of what we're doing at that particular point in time, which probably makes that work for me. Even my own bands beforehand, we've never had that. Never really had it, because sometimes you just end up with people who believe that playing is enough, and playing is never enough.
No.
Playing
No.
is never enough.
No. Absolutely.
What the audience gets is the end result of everything. That the music that you receive is the end result of everything.
Of everything, yeah.
But what that music should be telling you is the journey that's actually taken from the beginning, from meeting, from hanging out, from learning, to recording, to releasing, to you hearing. That you hearing, what you're actually hearing is a complete process of everything up until that particular point in time. Until you press play, you absolutely know nothing about what's going on. And every time, every record you play, from whomever, from that artist, specifically from that artist, every record should be a new story. It's a new page. You're turning a new page, and we're telling a new story right now, regardless of the subject matter of the song, regardless of that. What you should be feeling is the dynamic of everybody that's been working on that particular song. And if you don't get that, then unfortunately the record's shit.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right, the last one. Hang on a sec. Okay. It's quite a long question. I'll just skip the end. This is from Carl Peters. But we've already spoken about this. But have you done any other projects that he could listen to? But also, do you have any drumming influences from growing up?
Oh, drumming influences from growing up. That one's kind of easy, but kind of hard because there were so many of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's for me, that's almost like, and this is me talking again, because I do kind of like just, once my brain starts going, I'm just kind of gone. But for me, that's almost like asking the question, what's your favorite song? I can't answer that question. Yeah, exactly. For me, it's just, there's so much music out there that I absolutely love. But drumming influences, I'm guessing for me, it started off basically with the likes, it started off for me with like Philly Joe Jones. Because the first music that I got into as a kid was jazz.
Philly Joe Jones and Paul Chambers playing together.
Yeah, exactly. This is for you. Ask me what the first gig I went to was. What was my first gig?
What was the first gig you ever went to, Gary?
The first gig it's funny that you should ask me that. The first gig I went to as a kid, I was taken to see Miles Davis. Yeah, I was young and I had no idea. And then my dad used to be friends with Dennis Davis, so we saw Royales a lot.
Oh my God! Wow.
So I come from a particular jazz pedigree. That's kind of where I'm from. But cool. In saying that, we used to listen to everything. My dad was a huge Springsteen fan. In fact, the very first day that my dad met Pete and Carl, I told Pete and Carl to tell my dad that Springsteen was shit. And my dad's quite big. He's got massive hands. He wears lots of jewelry. He looks like a pimp. And Pete said that to my dad, and my dad gave Pete this look, and it was just the funniest thing ever. And Carl was just like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And I was just like, "You guys have just been totally set up. You've been totally set up." So it's And my dad he was the first to play me the New York Dolls as a kid.
Wow.
That was my dad. He played
Miles
the New York Dolls.
And then New York Dolls.
Yeah, exactly. So Philly Joe Jones, and then a friend of mine lent me a record when I was about 13 or 14 years old, and it was Chick Corea's Return to Forever.
Right. Okay.
With Al Di Meola on guitar, Chick Corea piano, and most importantly for me, Dave Weckl on drums. Mm-hmm. And I heard his musical approach to playing this. And his approach was very much Steve Gadd, and Steve Gadd was kind of like 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. Yeah. I was already kind of heading in that direction, but for me, the musicality of the likes of Dave Weckl was just kind of amazing. And then when I was in the States, I was in an organization called the Cadets, and we were it was a weekend in Teterboro Vocational School. And right across the road from the airport, where Jeffrey Epstein was arrested, but the two aren't connected. So there's nothing funny going on. And we were rehearsing one night where instructors, like our main instructor Tom Unks, Vic Firth endorsed, blah blah blah, he's just amazing, and Willie Higgins, and we're all stood there playing snare drums, blah blah. And then all of a sudden we see these two characters walking towards us. Neil Larravine, who's kind of like one of the main guys at Vic Firth, mallets and stuff. And then this other character walked, and we just saw this. This was like, what, 91, I think. Yeah, it's 91, end of 1991. And we just saw this kind of like this weird hairdo, and it was Weckl. And
As
he
soon as you
stood there
said the
watching
hair, I
us.
knew it was going to be him.
It was Weckl. I couldn't believe that Weckl was watching for me at that point in time. I mean, I was in a line with like 9 other guys. There was 10 of us there. But for me, I was just like, I can't believe Dave Weckl watching me. It was amazing. It was like a hero moment.
Yeah.
Then we rolled on like 15 years later. I went out to dinner with him, which was amazing.
Yeah.
But definitely one of mine later on in life would have been definitely Steve White.
Right. Okay. Yeah, he's all right, Steve, isn't he?
Steve, fucking amazing. He ain't all right. Fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And he's the best guy as well. I used to go to his clinics. And I was I used to go to his clinics, and I was a jam and style council kind of geek, and I just kind of like followed him around with records. And I think for a point he kind of like got annoyed at me because, as you see, I kind of like hug all the time. I just talk absolute nonsense. And I think it was at the what's the place in Birmingham, the Dublin thing, off Digbeth. Okay, he was playing there with Chad
Irish
Smith.
Centre.
Yes, that's the way. He was playing there with Chad Smith, and I just stood there again with records that he'd already signed. And I just saw him kind of like talking to people, and then just kind of like look up like this and go, "Oh God!" You again. And I did exactly the same thing. But then we rolled forward a bunch of years, and I was in Croydon, and I was doing my very first clinic with Chad Smith.
Yeah.
And just before I walked out on stage, I felt this tap on my shoulder, and it was Steve. And he went, "How you doing? I just wanted to wish you good luck." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing!"
Is so cool. Yeah,
I nearly didn't make it on stage because I just started talking again, like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" I just started talking, and it just like, it was amazing. Yeah. So there's a few there. And another one, definitely. Akira Jimbo.
Right. Okay. Wow.
Akira Jimbo. Wow. My kit, the way that my kit is set up is kind of it's the cymbal setup is symphonic. That's why I have like the splash, the 8-inch and the 6-inch and the 8-inch splash cymbals placed on top, inverted on top of the cymbals, and then I have stacks, which is very much jazz orientated. So the cymbal setup is very much kind of like, it's a hodgepodge of jazz and symphonic, because I always try to get different textures, apart from when I'm playing a live show, when I just try and hit the shit out of absolutely everything as hard as I can. But recording, it's kind of getting all the different textures, the different colors and warmths from all of the cymbals. But my tom setup and my timbal is next to it, and my pedal setup, that is just like everybody. I'm gonna come clean. Everyone's like, "Man, that's really original. I ain't never seen nothing like that." I'm like, "That's because you ain't seen Akira Jimbo." Because I stole this directly from him. It's totally all Akira Jimbo, all of it. Yeah. So I'm less original than people actually think I am.
They're amazing. Whole bunch of influences there as well.
Yeah.
People would probably think, "All right, yeah, okay, Libertines, that's garage rock, blah 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 blah." Then you just say, "Well, Billy Joe Jones, let's start there." And a lot of people. What's good about this? You'll get a lot of Libertines fans watching this going, "Who the fuck's Billy Joe Jones?"
Yeah, exactly.
And then we'll put a link to YouTube and Amazon for Billy Joe Jones, and they'll go, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. This is a tough question, but it's my last one.
Okay.
If you could pick one song that you've played on, not because it can't sum you up and your entire life, but if you just could only play, say like an Alien, one song that you played on, and just say, "This represents me a little bit."
One song?
Yeah.
Oh, damn. Okay, I'm guessing it would be Boys in the Band.
Okay.
Yeah. Boys in the Band. Because I think that for me, that song, it kind of, there's way too much going on in that song. Way too much going on in that song. But again, for me, it's the articulation of it, the way that I've actually then been, the boys kind of like just let me off my leash and just said, we have an idea for a song. I think it was a pre-written by Carl, and they had this groove, and I heard the groove that they came up with, but then that kind of like transformed into something else in my mind. It became something else altogether, and I was just allowed to approach it from a completely different groove and viewpoint to what they were thinking.
Yeah.
And only after working it really, really hard and over a period of time and kind of convincing them that this groove actually really, really works. What you're actually after is a real kind of like garage band sound, but you want your own sound as well. Why don't we transform this into something that is completely us? That way, if you actually do listen to my parts on the song, the kick bass is kind of all over the place. It's constantly changing all the way through because the feel of the song changes all the way through. And in order to actually maintain that kind of like that feel of travel throughout the song, then you can't have the main feature of the kit be exactly the same all the way through, because then that automatically changes the dynamic of the song. Yeah. The song needs to be transformed into a way that represents the way the guitars are changing, the way the vocals are changing, the way the bass is changing, the way the harmonics are changing throughout the song. You have to do that. And if I'm going to do that with the bass, then I may as well do that with the hi-hat as well.
Wicked.
So then all of a sudden, it just became this whole new kind of beast of approach to the song. And it's so I think that would definitely be mine. Yeah.
Wicked.
But I've got to think about it. Yeah. Boys in the Band.
Boys in the Band.
Got to be Boys in the Band. Yeah. It's not my favorite to play. My favorite to play would be Radio America, because it's really, really simple and really colorful, just really easy and colorful.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I honestly prefer The Simple Life. For the majority, most of the music that I listen to has very little drums on at all.
Right.
You know, the drums are really, really simple, which makes me kind of almost a Philistine of drums, because I'm like, oh, there's too much drums on there. There's too much drums on it. And then what do I do? Go and put too much drums on everything.
I'm the same with, like, you know, bass. That's like things with lots of bass on them. If it's a really complex bass part, I tend to be like, take some notes.
Yeah. There's one person who I think, for me right now, who totally gets away with it. Thundercat.
Yeah.
Thundercat is just a phenom. But I think that, again, that is because of the overall musical dynamic. Sometimes you can tell when somebody's doing an over embellishment on a part within the framework of a song. You can just tell. It's like sometimes it's like, well, that's not needed. But everything that he does, it has a reason for actually being there.
Yeah.
And that totally makes sense for me. And it doesn't take away from any other aspects of the particular track you're listening to.
Yeah, totally. Magic. This has been absolutely brilliant.
Sorry, I do go on. I really do.
No, this is brilliant. It's absolutely fab. Well, I'm going to do like a singular but a virtual round of applause and then to obviously come from everyone who's going to be watching this in a couple of weeks. Can we all say a massive thank you to Gary here right now? Gary, thank you so much.
And lots of love. Stay safe. Don't forget to wash your hands. And we shall reconvene in the not too distant future.
Top man.
All the best. Catch you later, bruv. Goodbye.